Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Club. So happy to have you with me this evening. A little bit past 8 p.m. on the East Coast. You're saying, Larry, 8 p.m.? Wait, I thought you were like the 7 p.m. guy. True, except when it's the Sharpe Club, then it's not. Why? Because, be quiet. I made the rules. It's 8. That's how it works. Stop being mean. So yes, look over there. It's 8 p.m. That's what it is. And so what do I do in a Sharpe Club? I bring other people on to chat with me about interesting subjects. So you, the audience, get a very interesting back and forth and chat. And you can join us too with your comments if you like. And I have tonight a wonderful group of people that we're going to chat with. She is, and she says herself, I'm going to be clear, she puts this in her bio. She is a 2-time internet game show champion. I am only a 1-time champion, so she's actually better than me. The one, the only, Amity Dolby. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Larry?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm glad you joined us. And we also have someone who I don't often say these words together, but I'm going to say them, a Christian, libertarian activist. I don't say that often, but today I do. His name is Jacob Winograd. How are you, sir?
Awesome. Glad to be here, Larry.
I'm glad to have you here. Absolutely. So we may be grabbing someone else coming up here soon. We may not be. It's okay. We're still cool either way. So I'm going to keep us in this mode so that it's easy for everyone to see us. I wanted to start this with a very specific question. And I think a lot of us kind of have noticed this, particularly now with everyone talking about the shutdowns and healthcare problems coming up here. America has, I think, a big problem. And I think it's around the world, but I'm looking at America. And that is, we have a world where the things that matter most to us, that are necessities, things like housing, healthcare, education, things that are really important, or we think as necessities, are expensive, very expensive. But when it comes to things like cool bags and sneakers and travel, there's Temu and Walmart, and everything in that regard is cheap. We can get a big screen TV or a computer or a cool phone, whatever. That stuff is relatively cheap. So there are people who are struggling to pay their rent, but have a whole bunch of cool stuff. So they have some luxuries, but they if they get sick, they're screwed. They're going to go bankrupt. This is a really weird situation. I'm sure you're noticing it. And here, in 30 seconds, Jacob, solve that problem. What?
Wow.
Why didn't you solve it?
I know, right? You know, that's the meme, right? You know, oh, libertarianism, you know, solve every problem in the world in 30 seconds or it fails. You know, I think, and this is, I guess, just the classic libertarian move, but it often just comes down to our monetary policy as the root problem. And I'm not saying that if you fix the currency, that it's not an overnight solution, right? There is no instant quick fix, but that's
no. I got to give you pushback on this. Whether we fix a monetary policy or not, it isn't that the dollar is valuable or not valuable. It's what is expensive and what isn't. Even though the dollar doesn't much value, you can still get some cool stuff on Temu for nothing. But I'm still going to struggle paying my rent. That's my question.
Well, it's not just the value of the dollar in terms of what the monetary policy does. I mean, the monetary policy affects, you know, we have interest rates that are artificially set by the Federal Reserve. This creates all sorts of distortions in terms of where banks and large corporations invest their money, or they gamble with money because there's no consequences for it. So listen, that's kind of like the deeper, like meta level problem. But, you know, one of the issues is that because you can go, well, why are some things cheap and some expensive? Some of this is economics. Like there's tradable goods versus non-tradable goods. You know, for example, like now the internet's fixing some of this, but like traditionally, you know, there are things like services that you can only get locally, or you can only get locally, right? Like going to the emergency room, for example, like that's a local service, right? I'm not going to shop, you know, 50 hospitals. I'm not going to shop 50 hospitals in a, you know, 50-mile radius when I have to go to the emergency room. Whereas like, you know, a TV or a widget or something that I can buy online, that's much different. And that can be shipped from anywhere where people make it. So there's a lot of complexity that goes into, you know, why. But a lot of it is also just government subsidy, right? You know, like our food industry. I know, like I'm a big health nut And one of my biggest complaints is that the foods that are the healthiest for our bodies are the most expensive. And what's cheap at the supermarkets, if you go to food pantries, what's mostly filled up there is the cheap foods that aren't healthy, that are just a bunch of, it's like, it's a lot of calories, but they're nutritionally, empty.
So, I mean, tell me what you think here. I mean, I think Jacob just said libertarian stuff, which is fine. I like that. But give me something else.
Well, I mean, I think inflation is the number one problem.
Okay.
I mean, our federal government prints money, and that it just drives down the value of our dollar. But Jacob mentioned food. I mean, the FDA and the USDA rules favor industrial agribusiness. We should allow local farmers, homesteaders, direct to consumer food sales without burdensome, compliance and regulations. Thomas Massey has introduced the Prime Act, which would help local farmers not be required to have a full-time USDA employee inspecting their meat processing plants, where they could sell within their state to their local neighbors. So it really boils down to getting things as local as possible.
Hold on, but let me push back on both of you here.
Sure.
Isn't there a societal issue here? What do I mean by that? Aren't Americans crazy consumers? Aren't we the ones who go on TikTok and watch the people unpack this and check out my haul, all the things that I bought, and let's go buy a bunch of crap that has no actual value but makes me look cool or feel cool? My daughter can often look at people and know by how they're dressed whether or not they watch TikTok. Like, she can be like, okay, she watched TikTok, because she has all the TikTok stuff, right? Whatever is the cool TikTok thing of the day, like, she knows. So isn't this a piece? Isn't culture a piece of this?
Yes, absolutely. But I hate to just keep on tying it back to inflation, but these things are connected, right? So I actually recently interviewed a Mises Institute fellow, and he's also a professor at Cornerstone University. His name is Jeff Degener, and he's written this entire I mean, it's like super academic. It's a really thick read on inflation and the family, but it's not just about the family. It's about all of our, choices. And yeah, I think we have, to use it in more economic terms here, we live in a very high time preference culture, and
high time preference culture.
Yes. So because of the high costs of living, because savings is, the interest rates are low, but then people can, to afford things, they go into debt. Everything is oriented, because of the monetary policies and because of our economy, towards just consuming for today, because why save it for tomorrow? And so this incentivizes a more, I don't think there's anything wrong with free markets and free trade and capitalism. But in terms of this kind of high consumerist mentality you're speaking to, I do think that's a bit of a distortion, but it's sort of a outgrowth of the incentives of the society we live in, or at the very least, it's connected and cyclical, right? You could say that these things feed each other.
But don't you have to be okay with that credit card debt, right? If you see people, and this is a common thing you'll see on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Shorts, people saying, I'm not going to pay my my college debt because the government should pay it, right? And that's done. They don't care. They're not going to pay it. Now pays they're garnishing their pay, all kind of stuff. They're just ignoring it. So isn't there a cultural aspect to this? So people just go, I don't care if I'm in debt. Yeah, there's another thing I've seen on online, which is people who are talking proudly about how much debt they have. They're 23 years old and they have $100,000 in debt, or they're 24 years old and they have $90,000 in debt. And it's just like, yeah, whatever. Isn't that also cultural?
I think so. My kids are 33 and 26. So, I see a lot of this. I think a lot of it boils down to the cost of living is so high on the things that we need. When I was my daughter's age, I was a homeowner, I was a business owner, I was already a landlord, in my mid-20s. But for her, she feels no hope that she could buy a home at her age.
You hit what I was going for.
Yeah, it's the self-gratification of the instant cheap stuff, because I've taught her how to budget and to try to save for the future, but these young kids don't really feel like they have a hope for the future. This is the first generation where, when my parents were younger and I was growing up, their main goal was to see us better off than they were.
Yes.
I think
we're
in this is the first generation of young adults where they feel like they're never going to be better off than their parents.
Right.
And so, there's a hope aspect of it, of why do I bother saving when I can never buy a house, when I'm going to be
this is the part that I was talking about.
Basement.
Yes, if you look at not just that, not only am I probably not going to buy a house, I'm probably not going to get married. I'm probably not going to have children. I probably don't have a future. I'm probably not going to have a good job. I'm probably not going to have Social Security. I'm probably not. Where's the I probably am, right? I remember when I was a kid, and I'm a little bit older, right? I remember when I was a kid, I thought I was going to be a guard on the moon base, right? That's what I thought. I thought I'm going to be a guard on the moon base because we're going to go to the moon. It's going to be awesome. And then I'm going to be a guard, and there's going to be like laser beams and stuff, and there's going to be rocket ships, and we're going to go to Mars. I thought all those things, right? And that's what I thought. And kids now go, I think I might like play video games. Done. Yeah. Like that's it. Done. Do you see where I was going with that, Jacob?
No, I agree. I mean, I think that it's a cultural problem, and I think that like Amity said, the economic realities are cementing that, and they're fueling it. So I think it's a cyclical problem. That's one of the things that that me and Jeff talked about on our show, was that the rates of marriage are going down, partly correlated with the fact that people don't have any expectation they're going to buy a house. They think they're going to have to work full time. They don't think they're going to be able to afford kids. And so just everything, like having kids, getting married, buying a home, these orient people towards long-term goals and towards thinking about not just even the future of their kids, but their grandchildren and leaving a legacy. There, when money, because of the inflation culture that we live in, when money is just constantly losing value, there's not even like a economic safeguard to, like, regardless of what like sort of the cultural norms are, which, listen, I'm a Christian. So obviously I think that beyond just the economy, I think that, religion and cultural values, which, starts in our homes, what we teach our kids and what's taught in the churches, I think that plays a role, but we're rolling a rock up a steeper and longer hill because of the inflation society that we live in.
Right. I get that completely. Let me grab a comment if I could. Adirondack says, my 22-year-old stepdaughter has no hope for any success. No home ownership, no marriage, no children, no retirement. Very, very hopeless. Yeah. Is there something that, obviously that's sad, and I hope she can change her way, but she's not alone. There are lots of people who feel that way, lots of youngsters who feel, why bother? And this is the next piece. Andrew says, Gen Z has been handed a bad deal, economical and societal. We've been raised in the post-moral, post-modern society, and people wonder why we're antisocial. And there's some validity to that too. When people say, why do all these youngsters like socialism? They're lazy, they're greedy. Many of them believe, no, I'm owed because you lied to me. Their answer, they validate their process of give me by, I did what you said. You older people told me if I go to school and get the good grades, that there'll be a great job waiting for me when I get out. There'll be a hot partner ready for me, to marry. I'll have kids. Everything will be awesome. I did it, and there's nothing here. You lied to me, therefore you owe me. And you boomers, we hate you, evil boomers. You took all our stuff. Again, how they feel, right? Yeah. And then so, I can take your money, rich people, because you lied to us.
And go ahead. Well, I have a little bit of sympathy for them, and like I'm a younger millennial, and before I was a libertarian, I was a democratic socialist, like a Bernie bro,
Yep.
and I understand kind of what's going on there because there's this sense in which, so like in economic terms, there is sort of like productive time, then there's what's known as leisure time, which doesn't mean being
Sure.
lazy, but just time that we spend with our families, that we spend just like doing cultural activity, not like productive activity. And we're not robots, right? Like, even though like, like there's this like,
Well, not yet.
We're right. Yeah. But there's just like caricature of like libertarians that we think that like, well, you should just live to work and make money and be like slave to corporations. And no, like, I think that people need leisure time. They need to spend time with their families and their communities, having fun. Like, we're human beings. We should be working to then have the money and means to enjoy life, not just be working for work. But I think people know that deep down that like, well, we shouldn't just have to do nothing but work to survive. And so when they're in a system where it's like, hey, not only do I have to work full time to survive, but that's not even enough. And I might have to live with a roommate. Yes. And if I want to have kids, like, this is a tough thing for me and my wife, is like, even if people have the right preferences, for example, like, I think it's better to homeschool your children, but that's a sacrifice. That means one parent, one adult is not in the workforce creating money, earning more income and earning potential that's going to help you to survive. And so there's all these trade-offs that have to be decided by every individual in every household. And what it all comes down to is, people become resentful and say, there's something wrong with this system because we weren't created, we weren't designed to do nothing but work, right? Again, I think working is good, but it's not the end all be all. I mean, even my religion, it says even, the God rested right on the seventh day. So rest is important. Leisure time is important. And people have, even if I think, obviously their solution to just like tax the rich or whatnot doesn't work, but the anger they have is like, I understand it, right? They're right that they're being screwed by the system.
Yeah. I mean, just bringing my daughter as an example back into it. She works in the medical field. She's in nursing school, but she works for a hospital while she's in nursing school. And if she were to rent an apartment near the hospital where she works, that would be 85% of her take-home pay in a full-time job.
Whoa. Say that again.
If she were to live in an apartment near the hospital where she works, it would be 85% of her take-home pay.
Wow.
Yeah. So She lives with me, of course, in a suburb further away from the city, but it shouldn't be that way. If you look at numbers, even back in the 90s when I was her age, it wasn't that high. Sure, I might have needed a roommate or something, but I wasn't going to spend 85% of my income on housing. And you mentioned Gen Z, thinking that they're owed something. What I think they're owed is for the federal government to balance the budget and reduce inflation and take less of their tax money. She shouldn't be handing out 30% of her income to the federal government so that they can go give it to the military industrial complex to bomb brown kids in the Middle East.
You bring up a big point here with this. And this goes to where I think this environment, what you just said, also tends to make us, in many cases, it makes us feel less compassion, right? So what happens? Well, why should I give my money to those poor people who don't work? Right. So now I don't like the deadbeats who aren't working. Right. So now I'm mad at them. I take my taxpayer dollars. I'm not compassionate for them. Right. Because I didn't get mine. So now I'm mad at them. And the second thing is what we just said. Now it validates socialists because socialists have a valid argument. If you got money to make bombs and blow people up, well, then you got money to give me money for my education or my healthcare or my whatever.
And then try going to a progressive or socialist and saying, the first thing we're going to do as libertarians or conservatives is we're going to cut food stamps.
Yes, exactly.
But
Yes.
the thing is, if we're paying less in taxes, if our grown children are paying less in taxes, then they won't need those federal social safety nets. Social safety nets should be local and voluntary, rather than massive, inefficient federal programs. So
I'm not saying you're wrong, and but then how do I get? I'm going back to. I keep pushing back to culture. I know I'm being a jerk on culture, but I am, and I'm doing that because government does affect culture. You're right, but then if you just change government, it doesn't automatically change culture. So if I have a consumer culture, what's going to happen? You give me more taxpayer dollars. My mind still says I don't have to give because government still has programs. That's where my mind is still, right? So then why would I give the charity? That's why I pay my taxes. Why would I go do this? That's why I pay my taxes. I have extra money. I'm going to buy 3 Temu t-shirts versus 2, right? Like I'm just going to go buy more stuff now. I still can't, I still don't believe, hold on. I still don't believe that I can get a house anyway. Like that's my mindset hasn't changed, even though the policy has.
Well, I think if the social safety nets are not there, like on a federal or state level, then your mind might change into, okay, prices have gone down. Now this, housing is reachable. Then I'll focus, I'll shift focus of my income to there. And also, people like, Jacob and me, as being Christian, I'm sure Jacob would agree with me, part of our faith philosophy is to be charitable. If we receive, if we had less of our tax dollars going to the federal government, we would be more charitable to people who are truly in need.
The other thing, everything you said is 100% correct. And I'll add on that if, and I know this is so like, just grant me a little bit of like, imagination here, right? That like if we were to fix the monetary system, right? So we don't have any more Federal Reserve artificially setting interest rates. What will quickly happen is that debt will get a much higher price tag, but savings will have much greater interest attached to them.
Oh,
right now,
okay.
Part of what's driving this consumeristic mentality, and I agree, the culture is not going to shift overnight, but if the incentives are, well, hold on, if I go into debt and it's, 20, 30, % interest or whatnot, and even, but savings, if I put money in my savings account, instead of 1%, I get 5%, I get 6%.
I'm going to tell you a story. Amity, you may remember this. When I was a kid, my first jobs, I was 15 years old. I got one of my first jobs. I got my first paycheck. And my mom said, go get a bank account, right? Put your paycheck in your bank account. I had a check. Like that's how I got it. There was a direct deposit back then, right? So I go there and to open up an account with my paycheck, they gave me a gift for opening up a savings account. The gift was an electric can opener that I gave my mom. I still remember it, right? They gave me a little electric can opener. It was like you pop it on the can and opens it up. So I gave it to her. There's my gift I got. And I remember seeing, I still remember this, that you could get a CD, certificate of deposit for 2 years. It gave you 10% interest. Unheard of today. Right. Unheard of today. But do that. They gave you a gift if you got a savings account and 10% interest on a CD for 2 years. Insane.
Yep. But if you
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead.
But if you buy a house you can't afford, you go into a bunch of credit card debt, in 10 years, that debt is actually less because of the constant inflation. We have it. Everything is stacked backwards to where you're incentivized to get debt because over time, you're like, that's where you're going to be making money in a way, right? This is what led to the 08 financial crisis. And this is why so many people are just carrying debt, not only because they can't afford to, but because it's just like, well, if I max out my credit cards, I can default on them, I can settle them, or I just pay them off over time. And, down the road, even if I still have a bunch of debt, well, because of just the constant rising of everything, just in terms of that debt compared to, the total money supply and what things cost, it's not like, imagine, if you had like 30 years ago, $300, $500 in credit card debt would have seemed like a lot. And today that'd be like nothing, right? And
nothing.
like, you know, three to $5,000 in credit card debt, you know, you just keep, you know, adding
it's
tens to
whatevs.
that. Right.
It's whatevs. I completely agree. Let me grab a couple of comments here. I want to grab some from the beginning here if I can. Let's see here. Lunatic Libertarian is in the house. He says abundance and convenience. There's a point to what he's saying. We want a lot of cool things and we want them now, right? So you see how people are paying for like Uber Eats and such, right? That's the example. But I mean, that costs you money. People aren't thinking about saving. They're thinking, you know what? I could go shopping and, you know, save some money if I go shopping. Or I could just do Uber Eats and spend like 3 times as much and be more convenient. I feel like there's a lot of that also, right? There's a lot of that kind of convenience piece. Now, one could argue that's a good thing, that we can have more, to your point, we can have more leisure time, right? I don't have to slave in the kitchen and make the food. I can just go on my app and someone would deliver it to me. And so now I can spend more time, I don't know, watching Netflix or playing video games or whatever is the thing, or in theory, spending time with my family. Sadly, I'm not with my family, but that's an issue. But let me go one step further with this. This is the idea of opportunities. Would I put up with that? Most people would. Would they put up with a tough environment, maybe 3 or 4 roommates, or not being able to cook, if they believed there was opportunity? And I think New York City has shown that to be true. In the past in New York City, it's always been expensive to live in New York City, right? Always. But people did it because there was a real chance at success, right? I would sit here, I would bust my rump, I'd have 2 or 3 roommates, but I know if I worked hard, I could be a big-time banker or a big-time actor or a big-time manufacturer or a big-time marketer or whatever is the big-time thing I wanted to do. Now I think most people feel like, no, I have virtually no chance to be that big-time this. So why the hell do I have 3 roommates? And why am I putting up with this? I went out a little bit off what we're talking about, but I kind of want to bring it all together. I go back to the same thing. I feel almost like that convenience and abundance that Lunatic's talking about, it's a drug. It's a way of self-medicating. It's a way of saying it doesn't matter, so let me just enjoy now. I'm getting that quick dopamine hit because I don't have any serotonin because I have no hope.
Yeah. Well, let me, I think what you're saying is very important here, Larry. And so I work for the Libertarian Christian Institute. So we talk on, you know, economics and libertarian philosophy, but of course we're Christians. So we talk about culture too. And I think that like one of the things I want to do is not only convince more people to be Christian, right, to accept Jesus as their savior, but I think then like once you become a Christian, that comes with a certain set of values. And one of those values is not just kind of like drugging yourself with convenience and abundance and things like that. But then when people go, all right, you know what? That's right. Because the Bible says be fruitful and multiply, because it says that we're supposed to, you know, live our lives as living sacrifices like Christ did for the church. We have to do that for those around us, for our families. Oh, wow. This is really hard. Why is it so hard? So then that's when you tie in the, hey, you know, if you care about the culture and you care about making it easier to, you know, to shift the culture in a way where we're not just kind of, you know, like it feels like right now that, and everyone likes to use 1984 as sort of like their favorite dystopian future. I think we're much more on the track to Brave New World kind of dystopian future.
I'm with you. Yes,
where everyone is just like, you know, we're just constantly drugged and just in a stupor and just like, you know, drowned with this abundance and convenience and dopamine seeking to where, you know, we're not even paying attention to what's around us, and we lose the sort of like the important things that even if you're not a Christian, you know, hopefully you value things that are part of this, you know, kind of like Western culture we live in, like individuality and, you know, personal responsibility and, you know, all that stuff is at stake, I think. And so, yeah, I think what I appreciate your insistence on bringing it back on culture. And I think that there is a validity to it, to what we're all saying. Cause I think it's not either or, it's both. And we have to fight to make culture better, which is going to lead to like realizing we have to also, you know, fix these economic and political structures, which are, you know, again, barriers to that.
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
totally agree. And, you know, as far as culture goes, it starts in the home. It starts in, you know, with the individual. One of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite saints, Mother Teresa, says, you know, don't wait for leaders, do it one-on-one, to person. So, you know, we have to teach people where they are. We have to reach our young people, you know, and then, you know, use the greater social media to reach people with culture. I don't think we should look to political leaders for sure to, you know, to, I guess, teach our young people, you know, what the best option is. I don't want, you know, our young adults to think that, you know, socialism is the way because, you know, big daddy government's going to come in and save them, you know.
No, I feel like most people who support socialism, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but this is my feeling, most of them don't even understand how or why it works. They just hear that it's an answer that someone's telling them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
they're giving them, here's an answer. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. What, I get free buses? Okay, I'll take free buses. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and they think that we live under capitalism. So they're like, well, obviously capitalism doesn't work, so we got to try the opposite of capitalism. So,
Yes.
you know, and that's one of the, you know, my personal ires with the, you know, conservatives and the Republican Party is that they'll often try to co-opt libertarian talking points, but then govern like
Constantly.
socialists.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Oh, I
it's
hate
very
it.
maddening.
Yeah, I was just
Yes.
talking to Free earlier today about how, you know, since the beginning of time, you know, even the Israelites were, you know, begging for a king.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
1 Samuel 8.
yeah, it's as old as you know, the beginning of time, that there's going to be a subset of culture who, you know, don't take initiative to
Right.
be self-sufficient or to go out and kill and eat and, you know, drag home, you know, what they need for their families. They're going to look
Right.
to someone else to do that for them. And so, you know, I think it takes, you know, leaders, not necessarily in government, but leaders in our local communities to step up, and in our families, who can teach the next generation that,
Yeah.
you know, they can be self-sufficient and they don't need a king or a leader or a government.
I'm going to go to what you just said here, and this is important. I don't think it's necessarily even just leaders. You said in the home. And often I bring this up when people get mad at people who aren't doing what you just said. And I say, if you come to my event, you talk to me, whatever, you probably think a certain way, right? Odds are you do. And what I would say is ask yourself, someone on this show listening right now, someone watching, any of your friends or family, imagine, if you would, when you grew up as a kid, you never saw your mother or father go off to work. You never saw it. It was not a thing. You never saw your mother or father go off to work ever. It wasn't a thing. You never saw it. They were always home or hanging out or doing something, but they never got up, went to work, either took a shower before work or took a shower after work, whatever, depending on what they did, right? Never did that. You never saw your grandma or grandpa do it. You never saw your uncle or your aunt do it. You saw it on TV, right? Or you saw it in a movie or something. So that's like what other people do, but you don't do that. If you grew up that way, you'd be a different person right now. And that's my point. I don't think we have to teach. I think we have to be examples, right?
Oh,
I
sure.
think we have to be examples.
Well, you know, Amity brought up the biblical passage, 1 Samuel 8. And what's so funny is that, like, it's not just, this isn't like us reading something into the text there, by the way. It literally says that they went to the prophet Samuel and says, like, give us a king so that we will be like all the other nations, that he will fight our battles for us and he will solve our problems for us. And Samuel then goes on this long warning from God saying, if you get a king, he's going to take the best of your livestock, the best of your harvests, and he's going to give them to himself. He's going to take your sons to fight on the front lines of his wars, your daughters to serve his courts and to be his perfumers and his bakers, and you will be his slaves. This is how he ends it. But then you contrast that with then when Jesus comes in the New Testament, and he is a king who says that to be the greatest is to be the least. And he models this by serving even his apostles by washing their feet and teaching them that this is the way to lead. And so we do need leaders in society, but leaders are not people who seek to figure out how other people can, make them richer and bolster them. And I think even sometimes we as libertarians, sometimes with good intentions, we can look to our thought leaders like, Dave Smith or Spike Cohen or Larry Sharpe, and think like, man, if we can just get Larry, into the governorship in New York State, then
all our problems will be solved.
Right. But no,
yes.
it's all of us. All of us have to be leaders in our homes, in our churches, in our communities. And we don't have to wait as libertarians.
What I want to do here is the reason why I'm giving some pushback on the word you both use, which is leader, is a lot of people don't want to be leaders. They don't want the responsibility. I know I do leadership training and coaching for a living. They don't want to do it. And what I say again, you don't have to be a leader. Some people will naturally lead. What you have to be is an example. I didn't need my mom or dad to be great leaders. I just need to see them go off and hustle. Even if they're not great leaders. I hope your moms and dads are great leaders, but they're not all going to be, because we aren't all great leaders. So some of the moms and dads are not going to be great leaders. But if they are the right example, that's good enough. We'll find some leaders, but we need us to be examples. That to me is a critical difference. And that doesn't make somebody run away. People will run away from leadership because that's now responsibility of others. But example is responsibility for yourself.
Well, I think we should define terms then, because like Jacob said, in the New Testament, Jesus was a servant, and he is our King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He is the greatest leader, and he served others. So, and led by example. He showed us how to live. So I think leader and example is, kind of synonymous.
Yes. In what you're saying, yes. It's a connotation versus a denotation, right? What you're saying is true, but we feel differently about it.
Sure.
Right. And I think that also matters. How we feel about it also matters. Phil gives me $2. Thank you, Phil. He says, too much agreement. Happy Reformation Day. I don't know. I've been pushing back all night. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been pushing back all night. I don't know what it is.
I'm Catholic, so I can't say Happy Reformation Day.
It's funny that
it took my family 505 years to return to the Catholic Church. So
it's funny because I'm Protestant, but yeah, Amity. So we're on Reformation Day, but the Catholic and Protestant are sitting here agreeing and arguing with the host.
and I'm by the way Eastern Orthodox, so I got you all beat.
Oh,
so I got you all beat. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, not that I'm saying I'm better than you, but I'm better than you. That's all I'm saying. No big deal. That's all. So yes. All right. Let me grab a couple of these here. I have so many of these. Lunatic goes on to say we have a deficit of skill sets among the common human. Not enough producers, too many consumers. This is a piece I worry about also. I tell this story often as I'm raising my daughters. And my daughters are looking online and playing video games, whatever, all those things. I say, I don't mind if you consume. I don't. Your friends consume. You want to be part of your environment, your buddies. I get it. But I also need you to create. You've got to be creating something, whether that's creating a program, whether that's writing, whether that's dreaming, whether that's, art. I don't care what it is. You got to create something. I don't care whether that's physically with your hands, something. And what I found is me pushing that concept of creation has drawn my kids into not only being consumers, but also being consumers who judge the actual content, don't just accept it, and who make things. Like my daughter makes her own clothes. My daughter made a costume for my younger daughter, right? She makes things to that point. She feels like she can do things. I love that concept. So I think Lunatic's on the money. Am I wrong here?
No, I don't. I think that one of the beauties of a true free market is that, and like you can argue this in a way that you could almost put it in socialist sounding terms, right?
Okay.
Where in the market, the way to win is by providing value for others.
Sure.
Right. And so now, to the extent to which we don't have a market, there are people who are able to get rich. And I think this is, un-libertarian and un-Christ-like even, who get rich not through providing value to others, but through gaming the system, exploiting the system. I'm writing a book right now that's kind of connecting, the Christian view with being anti-war and pro-free markets. And like the book of Amos is such a profound book because this Amos is not like a son of a prophet or someone who's like, of status. He's just like a worker in the fields, and then goes up to the Northern Kingdom and says that like, you're all corrupt, you're exploiting the poor to make yourselves rich. And yeah, like you're not providing, like you're staying rich, but off the exploitation of others, not because and not by serving others, not by creating value. And so I think the way that we have that part of that cultural shift, I think has to be, teaching young people that it's not about going out there and gaming systems and exploiting systems, but that the way to succeed in life, the way to, put yourself higher is to figure out like identifying needs in your community, identifying needs in the society at large, big needs or small needs. It can be spiritual needs. It can be physical needs. It can be entertainment, listen, I think sometimes we will categorize things like entertainment and culture and art and music as wants. Again, we're not robots. I think these are, people need culture, right? So
yes, I agree.
Wherever you're serving, you're filling a need, you're filling, a demand that human society has, and that's how you succeed. People will reward you based on how you serve them.
When I would teach sales, I would say, if you really want to sell things, understand something about people. Because people say, well, you need to give them what they need. That's why they buy. I said, no, not at all. People buy what they want. Needing it is a real good reason to want it, but they buy what they want. They don't buy what they need. Lots of people do not buy what they need, but they buy what they want. Yes, they do. So I think you're right. There is a difference between needing and wanting. And Mother Nature says they buy their wants and beg for their needs. This is very insightful in today's America. She is right on the money. Everything that we need, what do people say now? It's a human right. Right? Everything. Well, education, it's a human right. Housing, it's a human right. Healthcare, it's a human right. Anything that we need, we beg for it to become a human right. And they don't realize that when you make it a human right, all you do is make it expensive.
Yep. This really wise guy once came to my state convention and asked the room full of libertarians, are you guys against healthcare for all? And everyone raised their hands and said, no, we're all against healthcare for all. And then this wise man said, okay, you all gave the wrong answer, right? You do want healthcare for all. You just need to understand that when people ask that, you say, yes, I want healthcare for all. Now let's have a discussion about how we make that happen. By the way, for those in the audience who don't know, that wise man was Larry Sharpe. So
it's true. Yes. What I often did when I do that, next thing I say is, okay, so if I gave you a fully voluntary private market system that actually, gave everybody health care, you'd be against it. And
right.
Go,
well, wait.
No. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why
you're against the mandate. You're against the force. You're against the mandate. You're not against the concept of everybody having health care or health insurance. You would love that. Most libertarians, at least, who aren't monsters, would love that, right? The problem is they know what actually happens. It becomes a mandate. It becomes force. It becomes expensive. It becomes bad. And all of a sudden now the wealthy still get what they want. And I'll bring this up real fast, but excuse me. You often hear people who are very wealthy say, we need Medicare for all. And I always say, you don't actually mean Medicare for all. You mean Medicare for y'all. Because they're going to keep their own private doctors. They're wealthy.
Right.
So they want to give you the crappy doctors and they get to keep their own private doctors. In fact, they'll fly someplace if they need to go get their health care. You guys get that.
Exactly. And, it goes back to the culture of, thinking that the government owes everybody everything. But, I've seen it in the last week. I'm on X a lot. A lot of my friends,
I'm
post.
sorry.
Yeah, they post, memes that are, relevant to whatever's going on in the political world. And, it's been really sad for me the last couple days seeing my friends post memes about, people who are depicted as like quote unquote welfare queens,
Yep.
crying that their SNAP is going to go away. Well, it's not the people who are receiving assistance, that we should be, talking down to or, complaining about. It's the system itself, and it's the government who are, toying with everyone else's benefits while they're still, sitting in their ivory towers getting paid. So,
you've hit it perfectly. And it drives me crazy because what should be happening, and it's not, but I'm saying in my fantasy world, what we should be saying is, wait a minute. So if the federal government shuts down, we can't feed our own people. We can't educate our kids. We can't fix our roads.
And still,
we can still bomb people
in the
Caribbean. Yeah, we got that down. We can bomb them. Yes. Yeah. And we should be saying to ourselves, our system is utterly broken. Why aren't we fixing this? Oh my God. Right. The fact that Obamacare can't survive without massive government subsidies shows Obamacare doesn't work on its own, right? It should, in theory, if it is the private market. It's not. But if it is the private market, it should be able to function on its own, shouldn't it?
But it's the Affordable Care Act, Larry. So, I mean, what, are you against affordable health care? Like, what's wrong with you?
I'm a bad guy. It's true. Yes, it's true. Yes. But Amity, you're totally right. It drives me crazy that we're attacking these people and we should be trying to fix the system itself. This should be a wake-up call for us that we have to fix the system. It is broken. I guess it's the Hodeman. I'm not sure if that's how we say it. The Hodeman. The Hodeman says housing costs like 10 times what it should. Groceries are double market value. And medicine can be up to tens of thousands times actual cost. Going after SNAP is so wicked when we've broken their legs.
Amen.
It's a valid piece. And the only good part is if we learn our lesson. If we don't, it's just more. This goes back to my earlier point. Because we have this horrible left-right paradigm, it becomes okay to be cruel. Because the other side is wicked. And if the other side is wicked and evil, well, we got to do whatever we can to stop the wicked and evil people, right? So if I'm a Democrat or I lean left, all the Republicans are wicked and evil. If I'm more right-leaning, all the Republicans and conservatives are all wicked and evil. So if they're wicked and evil, well, can't I do whatever it takes to stop evil so I can be now wicked and evil myself, right? I validate my bad behavior. And I think the Hodeman, what you're talking about is we meaning as Americans right now, we are validating bad behavior because the other side is wicked. The Democrats will teach these Republicans, the Republicans teach these Democrats, and the people who are struggling will suffer. But what are you going to do? We got to get the evil people.
Well, and I think, this might be my least libertarian take, but, I'd rather, if we don't live in a utopia, so we can't just fix everything and make everything, and Capistan all at once. So I would rather, continue to feed those who are dependent on, the government system and provide them with their Medicaid until we cut out every other evil, because feeding someone while, it should be a self-sufficient or a local voluntary thing, it's not going to happen overnight. Keep those programs in place while we slash the military-industrial complex, while we stop turning Gaza into a parking lot, while we stop, bombing boats in the middle of the Caribbean, while we stop playing favorites and creating monopolies and corporations, with crony capitalism, because, our governments play favorites with their friends. We need to address those issues before we start taking people's SNAP away.
Yeah.
But doesn't someone then say, isn't the argument, well, look, at the moment, I can't stop the bombing, but I can stop Snap. So shouldn't I take whatever I can get? Isn't that what a libertarian is going to tell you? Isn't that going to be their argument?
It's
So why can't we stop the bombing?
Well, that too, but it's also short-sighted because if you just take away the SNAP and you haven't fixed the underlying problems in the economy of overregulation, of crony capitalism, the monetary policy, then you are just breaking people's legs and then leaving them to die. That's what you're doing. And like, so yeah, I understand what you meant by that, Amity, like my most unlibertarian take, but like my response to that, to some of the purists out there, is I go, because they'll be like, you're being unprincipled. I go, you know what? No, I'm not. My principle is I'm pro-peace. My principle is I'm pro-prosperity. I am pro-human beings. I love my neighbor, right? So I cannot be loving my neighbor and be pro-peace and pro-prosperity by saying, well, I'm going to give up on trying to end the wars, right? I'm going to say, because of my libertarian principles, what I'm going to advocate for is that, you know, I can't fix any of the systemic problems, but, you know, the imperfect solution that's at least keeping people like alive with all this crap that we don't like, I'm going to cut that, right? That tells people that my principles, that libertarians or that Christians, that we don't care about people. And that's not principled at all.
Right. And I know, you know, I've had pushback on that where people say, well, you know, you should be helping these people yourself. Well, and again, I
can barely feed my 5 kids.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and between the government, you know, between the federal, state, and local governments, you know, half of my income is taken away from me.
Oh yeah.
So, you know,
I live in New York City. I understand that very well.
Well, and it's a vicious cycle. So like, you know, one of my things I do not compromise on, and no judgment to anyone on this panel or in the audience, but, you know, there's a saying that, you know, don't send your kids to be raised by Caesar and be surprised when they come out Roman. Yep. I will not put my kids in the public school system, period. And I told my wife that from the time we got married, and I was like, you know, even before I was a libertarian, I was like, I'm not putting my kids in the public school system. Then I became a libertarian. I was like, we're definitely like, we're still not, we weren't before, and we're definitely, you know, 200% not now. And that means that I have to work more than one job. I work a full-time job, and I have 2 side jobs that I do from home. One being the podcast and the writing I do with the Libertarian Christian Institute. And so that is, you know, all to say that like I'm doing all that. And then when I calculate how it's so it's a
no, I'm agreeing with you completely.
The reason I brought that up though was because that like if I just tried to work my one main job, that's not really enough to live on. But then when you start trying to make more money on the side, you get taxed more.
Yes.
Right. So then it's this vicious cycle of like you're working more hours, you have less leisure time, but then they're stealing more from you as you're like, man, I'm in this level right now. But if I could just get from here to like up to here, I'd be a lot better off. And they're like, oh, you got to here? Cool. We're going to cut your legs off. Now you're back down to here again. Right.
Yes.
So,
right.
It's like the more you try to climb out of it, the more they punish you. And then as much as like culturally as a Christian, I want to give as much money as I can. I want to be generous with my local church. I want to be generous with my local food pantries. I want to be, but it's like, man, it is tough to like, if you looked at my gross income, you'd be like, oh, like you should be able to raise 5 kids on that. But then if I showed you my tax return, you'd be like, what? By the way, underrated policy proposal. If we ended withholding and made all Americans have to actually send in all their, you know, federal income tax and Medicare and Social Security on that, you know, every paycheck, people would be
there'd be another revolt.
Right. They'd feel it a lot more than when it's just automatically deducted and out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene told us a couple days ago on a show to stop if all of us just stop paying taxes, what are they going to do?
Arrest us all. They're going to arrest us all. I will never forget. This is a quote from I'm pretty sure it was a Soviet commissar when the Soviets reinvaded Poland after World War II, and the Polish were pushing back, saying you can't, you know, do this, whatever. And there was a big fight and protest. And one of the Polish leaders said to the commissar, "You can't arrest us all." And his response was, "Why not?" So they'll just arrest everybody. That's how it works.
I don't know. Like, I think it just depends on where you're at and the type of, put it this way, America, for as much as we've gone downhill, we still have, a very armed population. I think that was
not in New York City. We don't.
Well,
no, we don't.
Listen, there are some states that might be a lost cause, Larry. I don't know what to tell you.
Yes, I'm just saying, not in my city, but I hear you. But yes, overall, you're correct. But not in my city.
We look at the COVID mandates, and even like moderates who were like going along with the COVID mandates early on. By the time we got to like 2021, most people were not going along with the mandates in their states. I mean, I live in Pennsylvania, which at the time, well, even now, it's always been. It swung for Trump a couple times, but like the local, like the governor and the Senate and all that, it's always been blue. And people pretty early on by 2021, especially, they stopped following that stuff. And so, which I thought was such a red pill. It's so unfortunate, even that like conservatives started to get more, I don't know, woke, you could say, on law enforcement, and that like the whole like thin blue line might have a few problems with it, like
not in my state.
No, maybe not in your state. In my state, at least people started to go, oh wow, I took my my kids to the park and the police are arresting mothers for doing that. It made them think twice about like that thin blue who enforces state tyranny.
Yes. So let me bring up the point you brought up about state schools and such. There is only one Orthodox Christian high school in the entire country, only one, and that's in Astoria, Queens. My daughter goes to that one. It's the only one in the entire country. Yes, there are lots of like elementary schools and junior high schools. Only one high school in the entire country, and that's here, St. Demetrius, here in Astoria. But besides that, I want to make sure that the people, you guys who are watching, do me a favor if you're watching. You have two people here who are giving you great content back and forth. Please follow them. Follow Jacob, if you would, on X at Biblical Anarchy, and follow Amity on Amity Lee 1313. Please follow them there. See what they're doing. Check them out. It does matter. Give them a like if you can. Follow them. See what they're doing. Click on their stuff. It's all good. But I got to go one step further if I can. If you haven't clicked the like button, why do you hate the children? That's all I'm going to say. You hate the children if you don't click the like button. So click the like button, but not just that. Please share this or repost this. If you haven't shared this into like a Facebook group or repost this someplace on X, why do you hate the troops? I don't know why you hate troops and children. You're a bad person. So don't be a bad person. I can redeem your evilness if you simply click the like button and repost this. I will forgive you. See how easy that is? All done. You are forgiven. Just do that. Share and if like it. And
if you don't subscribe, the terrorists win.
They do. It's true. Yes. You have to subscribe to this channel or page, or the terrorists win. I don't know why you love the terrorists. Why do you love them? I don't know why. Wow. My heart hurts for you. So don't do that. Okay. We don't want terrorists to win. Subscribe to this channel. Okay. So I think that covers those three pieces. The next piece I want to bring up, if you want to think about how we talk about government making things more expensive, doing that, there's a place where you can hear about some of that. You know where that place is? You knew it was Civil. Of course you did. Guys, if I could real fast show you, if you want to take a chance, pop on over to Civil if you can. They are a sponsor of the show. Head on over there and check it out. Here's one of the ones, cool ones. It's called DC Just Made Daycare Even More Expensive. It is a short documentary on how government made daycare more expensive. Here's a couple seconds of it.
First kid wakes up, that's when we wake up.
Jacob knows this feeling very well.
So getting them dressed, getting either breakfast or snack for either of them. So if we could ever sleep at 8, maybe you're running out.
It's just humanity. It's just people, right? So now what are you going to see? A bunch of stories about people and how DC makes their job harder, not easier. How what happens is whenever you add government, you remove community. This shows you how that happens. We want more community, less government. Pop on over to Civil, guys. And when you join, click the code Larry10 for 10% off. Larry is the coolest name on the internet. add a 10 after it, and you get 10% off. Civil, CIVL.com. When you have a moment, please do that. Also, there are 6 actual episodes. We Fix It Wednesdays, only Larry Sharpe. We Fix It Wednesdays, only on Civil. You can't get them anyplace else. So check out Civil, supportcivil.com, where we are upgrading civilization without the conflict machine. All right, guys, did my little homework. I did my little my admin stuff. So, and don't forget to like. So I do want to keep going for a little bit if I could. What I mean by this is this idea of, stopping the military industrial complex and things like that. Here's one of the issues, and I see it in my state. My state is addicted to the military industrial complex. What I mean by that is all the new jobs in upstate New York, they're all military industrial complex. You end that, people can't pay their bills. So we have a big problem. Bombing people and supporting bombing people is big business. People are paying their bills on it. It's a thing. How do we handle that? And then we want consumerism too.
Well, it's very unfortunate. And my state is the same. I'm in Virginia. And
oh my God, Virginia, yes.
And my district is actually I'm near Richmond, but the congressional district kind of goes down to Norfolk. So, you have all the Navy shipbuilding yards and, all the military bases down there in Virginia Beach. And so you're absolutely right. Everybody is dependent on the government. So,
yes.
We have to, if we were to, reduce the military industrial complex and stop bombing the world and being the world's police, then, we have to encourage other industries.
I had an idea, which was a very unlibertarian idea, but I had an idea for at a federal level. If I was going to run for Congress or Senate, I'm not obviously, but if I were, I would say, hey, here's how we can reduce the military industrial complex. Accept that the military industrial complex is not evil, but apathetic. They actually don't care if they're killing people. If they do, great. If they don't, they don't. They just want to make sure you're buying stuff. Basically, someone's buying their stuff basically as a monopoly, and they get to sell great stuff at a great price. Is all they really care about, right? Okay. So what if we instead said, all right, military industrial complex, we're going to start to reduce it. And as we reduce it, we're going to open up all these countries that right now we're embargoing. We're going to open up North Korea. We're going to open up Iran. We're going to open up Cuba, Venezuela, all those countries open up. And we're going to give every military industrial complex company like a 2-year monopoly in that country or something like that. 3-year monopoly in that. I'll make the number up, right? Some kind of monopoly in that country so they can start to pay and make some of that cash up and kind of learn how to compete again. Because these companies do not know how to compete. They know how to bribe to get jobs. That they know how to do. They don't know how to compete. They have no idea how to sell. Halliburton doesn't have like a sales force, right? That's not a thing, right? They don't know how to do that. They couldn't even know where to start. It would take them years to rebuild that. So maybe do something like that. Now people go, Larry, you're authorizing government monopolies in foreign countries? Yes. And the reason is, if I don't do that, how do I break the military industrial complex? There's too much money in it. Well, that's my answer for you, Amity. You asked that question. That's my answer for you.
What if we go ahead, Jacob?
Okay, first of all, I need to one up you guys or at least be on par with you guys, because in my state we had a presidential candidate come and sign bombs. So I mean,
I remember that. Yes.
So
we all. Haley? Oh no, you're in Pennsylvania.
I'm in Pennsylvania. Yeah, so that was Nikki Haley coming and signing the bomb. Finish them. So
yes.
Yeah. Lovely. So that's an interesting idea. I'd have to think about that. I do have to just continue to, however, just embody that Ron Paul revolution mantra and the Fed. Like, because at the end of the day, it's that's it. I know it seems like, libertarians that are one answer, like, how are we going to take care of this? The free market. How do we solve this? And the Fed. We say it because it's true. Because at the end of the day, what's fueling the military? I mean, and this is probably
not wrong.
I'm overgeneralizing a little bit in terms of how the military-industrial complex works. But generally, how it works is we lend money that we printed to other countries, even, and to our own. Our government's printing money that they then buy the weapons from the military-industrial complex from them.
Absolutely.
So, the money printer going burr is partly what's fueling that and fueling the endless war, which is why Ron Paul, who made war his like number one issue, made ending the Fed his number one issue, because they just go hand in hand.
But there are literally hundreds of billions of dollars in the military industrial complex. And if I don't give them something to buy, to sell with people's money, right? In my plan, the countries are buying regular with their own money. They're just buying stuff from the military industrial complex. We don't give them any money. They're just it's now open. They can do it any way they want. They get a monopoly, right? From us. They can just do it. If I don't give them that, $100 billion, hundreds of billions of dollars, that puts you underground, my friend. If you're not sure, you could ask JFK about that. Oh, you can't, because he went underground, right? You cannot, if you want to stop the military industrial complex without an answer, you go underground. So you're never going to stop it if you don't give them an answer, because they will put you underground. And they'll put your family, like your brother, underground. They will put you underground. So since they will put you underground, you have to give them an answer or it will never get done. Now, next thing I bring up with the Fed, I always talk about auditing the Fed. And the reason why I say that is the vast majority of Americans don't know that we can't actually audit the Fed. See? So if you say audit the Fed, great. Americans still think the Fed, as you know, is a part of the federal government. So of course we can audit it. They're part of the government. Well, when we do that and they go, well, no, you can't do that. What? People didn't know Trump couldn't fire the head of the Fed. People didn't know that. They thought, well, of course he can. It's the government, just like he can fire the Secretary of State. It's the same thing. So saying to audit the Fed is my way of getting Americans to go, oh, what? Wait. Then we can end the Fed. And I think we end the Fed in a way that it's literally almost like a bankruptcy. It's a process you go down. Because if you don't go down that process, our entire economy will collapse, because our economy is based upon debt.
True.
I want to push back a little on the military industrial complex.
Please.
So my solution would be, if we're not selling weapons to other countries or producing all these weapons, these companies they'd find solutions. They would have to go into, say, the energy business.
No, they wouldn't. They'd put you underground. No, they would just put you underground.
Okay,
I mean, Amity, you're a Catholic.
If you have a company, just a minute. If you have a company, let's say you have a company and you have a product, and that product is no longer valid in the market. Right. You're either going to go bankrupt or you're going to find something else to sell. So
No. The second Amity shows up as a congressperson or a senator and says, we're going to end a military industrial complex, I try to bribe you.
Nuclear reactors. And
The first thing I tell you is I send my goons to you and I try to bribe you. That's what actually happens. And most people accept the bribe. Say you're hardcore. Let me finish. Okay. And you don't accept the bribe. You go, nope, Larry, no bribe. Good. I then threaten you. I say, I'm going to kill you. And you go, I don't care. I'm going to kill your family. You go, I don't care. I'm hardcore. Then they just kill you.
I mean, you're Catholic. You know what happened
to the point.
To the last Catholic
president. It never
president.
gets to the point. Thank you. Yes. It never gets to that point is what I'm saying. I get what you're saying, but you're never going to get to the point of actually doing it. Now, if I show up as a senator or a congressman, I say, hey, guys, I have a plan. Here's how you shift your dollars into something else. Let's negotiate that deal. Then they go, okay, let's listen. They'll still try to bribe me. They'll still threaten me. But now they decide, is it worth putting him under the ground? Or can we make money this way and it's good enough? That'll be their only issue. And if I can convince them that it makes more sense to make money this way and not put me underground, they will do so.
What if we had 5 or 10 more Thomas Masseys in office? I mean,
that would be amazing.
They can't take everyone out who is principled and won't take bribes.
I'll repeat what I said before. Why not?
In
1963, they took out one Kennedy. 1968, he took another one out.
So Amity, I would have agreed with you before this last election cycle and Trump being in office, but after watching Trump win and watching how MAGA voters, not all, but more than should have, how they responded to the Epstein cover up and how they went from, being like, he was the anti-war president, no new wars, to like, oh, like Trump was amazing during the 12-day war and just all this stuff. I'm just like,
you're right.
I don't know. I don't know. Like it does kind of seem like, everyone turned on Massey. So
yes,
they turned on Rand. They hated Ron.
They still do.
Yeah. So
but they're still getting reelected. I mean, I think the actual citizen population, Thomas raised more money this last quarter than he's ever raised in a quarter in his entire, congressional career. So he has support, just not from the deep state itself.
I think that, kind of what you guys are getting at is it's not even just the military industrial complex. It's just how much of the economy is people working either for the government directly or they're working in industries that rely on the government money for them. And that is probably one of the most underrated problems that, is the hurdle we have to jump to rolling back a lot of this. And the issue is gradualistic incrementalism is probably the best, but it's kind of hard to centrally plan that and coordinate that.
100%. Yes. So, which is why I keep saying you push stuff. My goal in all my policies when I run for office is not to necessarily knock government down, but to knock down the monopoly of government, so that now there is a civilian or a community answer. If you allow and support community answers, one of two things happens: the government gets better, or it goes away. Both are the right answer. But there's still something there to support the people who need that, whether that's a job, whether that's support for their children, whether that's support for their churches, whatever it is, there is a community answer there. And as a governor, I don't have to essentially plan it. I set up a system to where people can do it. One of my policies I have, I don't know if you guys know this one, is if you owe the state any money at the end of the year, whether through fines, fees, taxation, whatever it is, you can take $250 of that and give it to any non-government funded nonprofit in the state. If that nonprofit is in your county, it's doubled to $500. So what does that mean? So I owe the government $1,000 at the end of the year. I'm gonna take $500 and give it to a nonprofit, non-government funded nonprofit in my state. Well, it's $500. So what? When 1,000 people do it, 10,000 people do it, I'm now supporting community answers. As I do more of that, people see the community actually do the right job. They begin to support the community. That's how you change the culture over time. People go, I don't have to go to government. I have a community answer right here. Why do I go to government? And now people who aren't wealthy can then give, because everyone's paying taxes. So you're paying taxes, you give those taxes to you, and it's voluntary. So if you like your government, I don't know why you would, but if you do, you can give your money to your government because you love your government so much, or you can help somebody locally. I think things like that make things better.
I think that's true.
A great solution.
Yeah. I also think something we haven't brought up yet that I need to learn more about this, but the more I learn about it, the more I think it's an important part of whatever long-term solutions we're talking about is cryptocurrency. Because I think the more that, and it's also important to fight regulations and laws that are trying to be passed to get government more involved in cryptocurrency. But like, I know, like we had someone on our show like a month ago who was a missionary, and he was talking about how he was able to bypass a lot of like the hurdles that sometimes international missionaries face when they're traveling and they face government persecution because of cryptocurrency. Because like a lot of the ways that government controls people is through making them use their own fiat currencies. But when more people are able to not only as individuals kind of bypass systems because of cryptocurrency, but then we're talking about building not black markets, but gray markets, alternative markets, markets that are, less trackable, right? And if people are, so like, I know you can get taxed on Bitcoin if you like buy it and then sell it. But like, if we get to the point where enough people are using Bitcoin and they're just transacting in Bitcoin, that's a lot harder for the government to then come in and take part of the pie. So
Agreed.
That's an important part of this too, is the more people start using cryptocurrency, I think the government, especially we saw under Biden, like Trump's administration's at least been better on this, but there was with the Biden administration, there was way more prosecution on like, kind of like bogus charges for people in crypto than there was before. It was a crazy hike because I think that there's a lot of people who are afraid of these technologies that are going to make it harder for them to control people.
Let me grab a couple of these. I got to grab a couple of comments here if I could. Super chat. Thanks, Phil. Step 2, what happens to Thomas Massie? That is an important point, right? Does he get primaried out or not? Does he run for something bigger or not? Does he motivate people to run? I hope you're right, Amity. I hope he does, motivate more Thomas Massies. I hope he does, but I don't think we know. Do you have a feeling what's going to happen?
I mean, there's some people that are running in primaries right now. One that I'm sure you guys both know, Joshua Smith, is running in Iowa for the state Senate seat. He was going to primary Joni Ernst. She's not running, so he'll run against whoever else is running in that primary. But there's a couple of people around the country. There's someone running against Randy Fine. There's someone running against Lindsey Graham. Brandon Herrera, I think, is running in Texas. So there are more liberty-loving people who are trying to, beat out the neocons in their primaries, who may make a difference. All we really need is 5 Thomas Massies, and the entire, voting block in the House changes. They can starve out one, but they can't starve out 5 or 6 or 7.
But I think to kind of circle back to something we were saying earlier, we need more Thomas Massies, but we also just need more of us. We need more libertarians and people who care about liberty, because you know what? They might be able to take out, your Kennedys. They might be able to, take out, whether it's politically or through force, other dissidents. But what they cannot continue to do, even if they do that, right, which they have the power to do, but then their ability to control the narrative, the more they try to, you can only take it, already people are kind of even with the Charlie Kirk thing, people are just kind of none of this really adds up. We're not really buying this official narrative. And I'm not saying I know what happened, right? I'm not saying Israel did it. I'm not saying anyone did it. I'm just saying this official narrative you're giving me, there's way too many holes in it. It doesn't make sense. People are not trusting the government more and more these days. And so the more people are they might be able to just take out, individuals who are, for a little bit, but if there's enough of us in the ranks that we just kind of keep on replacing them, or we keep on refusing to we're refusing to be silent when it comes to release the Epstein files and tell us the truth on these things, that loss of narrative control. There's only 2 choices.
I think those go together, though, right? What she's saying, they go together. To get more Thomas Massies, there will have to be more of us, because that's the only way you get more Massies, right? So I think they're hand in hand. Am I wrong?
100%. Yeah.
Right. And I don't actually care which party these libertarians rise up into. Whether it's the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, or in federal office, it's
the Libertarian Party.
I know, but federal offices, it seems like an insurmountable hill. And that's why
I'm working on it. Give me some time. I'm working on it.
Well, I think it would be wonderful to have libertarians actually from the Libertarian Party, into, federal office. But I mean, Ron Paul did it, Justin Amash did it. Thomas Massie did it. If they have to go into the duopoly to try to affect change, I'm good with that. But I think that we can have multifaceted strategies, and not just with our elected officials. I think what Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, you were trying to say is it's not just getting people in office. It's, us being voices, in social media and, in the
in our churches,
in our communities, anywhere we can shape the narrative.
I was at a men's retreat last weekend, and this happens more and more, where like even though there's like that taboo, like we don't talk about politics, right, in churches and things like that, inevitably, because we were all just staying up late and talking, it finally got to politics, and we all talked politics for an hour and a half, and I just tried to sit there calmly, ask questions, plant seeds, challenge. We have, my church is diverse. There's people who are like center left. There's people who are very hardcore conservative, who are Trump supporters. And, I'm trying to find ways to kind of plant those libertarian seeds. And I think, I would say it to Christians, especially, we need to, if you're libertarian, you need to be able to, articulate that view to people in your congregation and community more, or whatever religion you are. Just like be more willing to have, you're not combative, don't be like a debate me bro, don't be a jerk, but just have honest conversations, ask questions, figure out what people care about, figure out ways that you can show them that you care about the same things, and that libertarians don't maybe perhaps meet their misconception. Right. I think that's a big part of what we need to do.
I have to grab some more comments, guys. I'm falling way behind. Phil over on Rumble, thank you for the $1, my friend. The thing with them dropping millions into Massey's district isn't just to silence him, but to silence people who agree with him, but aren't in safe districts. That it's also a fair technique. I think that's true. He's right. Also, Larry takes crypto for his campaign. Also true. So if you do want to go, yes, both of those things are true. So yeah, so I think there is a piece where people are kind of getting afraid, right? They think, oh my God, to your point, I mean, someone else is going to primary me. I think you have some of that too. I think they're not just trying to get Massey; they're also trying to scare others.
Well, that happened last year in the district next to me that I actually lived in at the time. Bob Good was the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. And, he wasn't supporting foreign aid. He didn't want to send money to Ukraine or Israel. And so Trump sent in a neocon to primary him. He barely lost, just by a few hundred votes. They had to do a recount. And there were a lot of us pushing to get him reelected. But, when there's big money and a big name like Trump saying, to the low info voters, vote for this other guy, we don't like Bob Good anymore, then sure, they lose their primaries. So there definitely has to be more grassroots.
Andrew says he's with you. Jacob says exactly on Brave New World. Yeah. Absolutely. And the lunatic, go ahead.
I was just like, can I get on a soapbox just for like a 30-second thing? I am so tired of this like party prejudice when it comes to libertarians. Like just today I saw someone who I know and generally like, but just going like, Ron Paul wasn't a libertarian because he was a Republican for most of his career. And I'm just like, gosh, like, guys, we're such a minority right now. We can't afford this like stupid, dumb purity test infighting. Now, like, listen, I would prefer an LP strategy to a Republican Party infiltration strategy. But like, can we just stop with the friendly fire? Can we find ways to just like, whatever party you're doing it in, or if you're running as an independent, whatever, just like if someone's a small L libertarian, no matter where they're at, let's stop being so vicious towards each other and just support one another. Anyway, that's just my soapbox moment there.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a police car next to me that just won't shut the hell up. It just won't stop. So
they heard your plan to end the military-industrial complex, and they're coming for you.
Yes. No, one of the things, if I ever were to become mayor, I would literally say, turn this shit down. It destroys our city. I'm gonna get on my soapbox now. My city is so damn loud it makes me want to vomit sometimes. And they did it because they said, well, people have headphones in. So they raised the sound of everything. So now everywhere in my city, I got to hear an ambulance or a cop car or something. Every 5 seconds, when it's 35 blocks away, I got to hear it because somebody might have headphones in. There's flashing lights. It's fine. You don't need it. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's my soapbox. So yes, that's what I deal with in here. So Lunatic says, the nuclear family has been erased because of government subsidies and family court systems. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. They don't speak about it all. It's true. Our system is and I want to go one step further. I don't think the nuclear family is the best way to raise children or to keep us happy. I think the extended family actually is. The nuclear family is acceptable and better than the single mom or single dad. I think it's better, but actually the best is extended. I think it's better when you have grandma, grandpa nearby, uncle and aunt nearby, cousins nearby. I think the clan is actually the best way. That's just my view.
Oh, I totally agree. Up until recently, I had 4 generations living in my household. My mother has Alzheimer's. I cared for her for 8 years, so she just recently went to live with my sister to give me a little break. But we had, my mom, myself, my daughter, and her daughter all living together because we needed to help each other out.
Yep.
So yeah, I totally agree that extended family is helpful.
The Holdman says, to be fair, you 3 in positions of leadership would solve a lot of problems. True. But I agree, we have to focus on culture first, and then leadership will change. Yes, because even if all of a sudden they magically said, Larry, you're king of America, people would listen to me because our culture would be anti-me. I need to build a mandate. This is what I think, what Amity's saying is so right. If we got 5 more Thomas Masseys, it would be because he had convinced the people to vote for him. Right. So that would make the cultural change. I think they do have to go hand in hand. I absolutely agree. I mean, look, if anybody wants to be king of America, I will take the job. I'm just saying, I don't think I'll be as effective as some people might think I would be.
Well, it's the same thing with like the hypothetical Rothbard button. It's like, would you press it? Like, yes. I guess I would, but I also think that they would just recreate everything we have out of scratch because most people want it. So like,
my worry has always been that if you just get rid of the thing, the government, people will be so afraid they will beg for a strongman. Yep. So whatever we have now, if we just got rid of it, we would beg for something worse. Yeah. Because we'd be so afraid. I never forget this. I was watching TYT. I was watching the Young Turks, and they were mad. Yeah, of course. And they were mad at Milei because Javier Milei was going to get rid of these departments before he, whatever. And they literally said, he wants to get rid of the Department of Transportation. He doesn't want transportation. So like in their minds, when you get rid of the Department of Transportation at the federal level, the trucks explode. Like they just blow up. There's like no trucks, right? Once you do that, get rid of the Department of Education, all the schools collapse and teachers all die, right? That just happens when you do it. It's like when you kill the lead vampire and other vampires die. That's what happens, right? When you do that. And obviously I'm joking, but they believe it. That's a cultural issue.
Yeah.
So Andrew says, the Neo Sage shop. True. For those of you who don't know, that's the name of my company, the Neo Sage. So yes, that is actually true. That is in my company. So for those of you who know, that's accurate. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. So Brana says, Gandhi said, and I'm paraphrasing, I like your Christ, but not your Christians. Christians don't seem very Christ-like. That's actually funny. It is a paraphrase. Yes. I remember one guy once said, he says, I like Christ. I don't like all the people who say they speak for him. So also good point.
Yeah, Jesus said that what you do to the least of these, you've done unto me. And so I just think like, okay, so the least of these in Gaza, the least of these in Iraq, the least of these in, all these Middle Eastern countries, the least of these in Venezuela right now. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing unto them as a, and when people are like conservatives, like we're a Christian nation. I'm like, you might not want to wish that upon yourself. you saying we're a Christian nation, and then this Christian nation is doing all these things. Like, man, you might be inviting some divine judgment upon yourself.
Amen.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. I get that point completely. All right. I'm going to grab a couple more of these if I can. All righty. Let me see here. If I can go to, okay. I share this program almost every night. My people simply don't engage. Perhaps I'm just more open-minded. I see that happen often. I see people simply not engage with what I talk about. They don't want to have the conversation. And it's sad because I'm begging for it. If you guys see me, I will go on any podcast. Far left, far right, Trumpsters, Bernie Bros, communists. I've literally been on the Revolutionary Blackout Network, which is literally an open socialist network. I don't care. I will go on anyone. I want to have a conversation. And I know their chat will rip me to pieces. It is insult after insult after insult. My team actually gets mad. Like they're like, Larry, I'm so pissed. Why do you go? because I want to get as many people as I can.
Yeah,
I have to talk. But to be forward, it is simply a series of disrespect. It's terrible. So,
but you know what? Your job is to gather the remnant. Like I went on Andrew Wilson's The Crucible a year ago and did a debate on Christian nationalism versus libertarianism. I was walking into the lion's den and I knew it.
And he's talented.
And it's blood sports debate. And so I knew I was going to sit there and get interrupted a lot and get asked a lot of like weird, like absurd, like reductio ad absurdum questions. But you know what? Like for as much as I had 90% ridiculing, there was like 5% that were like, you know what? We don't agree with you, but you're all right. You made some good points, right? And then another few people, and listen, it had been like 3 people that said, actually, you might have, changed my mind on a couple of things there, right? So it's like, so I could either put up with the ridicule and not plant and plant those seeds, or just say, it's not worth it, and then nothing gets done, nothing risked, nothing ever gained, right?
There we go. Liberty Lady says Larry was on 2 podcasts yesterday. He's going to be on a Lunatics podcast next week. True. And Lunatic will yell at me. So I know that's true. So it's all good. She goes on to say, Larry's not afraid of conversation. True. Andrea says, we get beat up in the chat too. Also true. Yes, my people do show up and they often get beat up. Also true. Yes, that does happen. So Freedom Uncut says, great show. We postponed our Halloween show till 10 p.m. to watch this. So if you want to see a weird take on the game show tonight, join us. Yes, and where can they join us? Where can they join you? Please tell me.
They can join at on X. If you go to Freedom for Us for All, that's Free's X channel, and he'll have all the links to YouTube and Rumble. I think it's Freedom Uncut on YouTube, and that's at 10 p.m. live tonight. I'm also going to be on the show next Friday night, November 7th at 8 p.m. to get my 3rd win on the game show, and that's at 8 p.m.
I'm going to be on the 7th as well. So
you are?
We're going to go from having this nice, friendly conversation to having to fight each other.
Oh no, I'm going to beat you.
There we go.
I didn't realize
there we go.
Speak.
Absolutely. So, guys, I want to go one more thing if I could. I know we're talking about conversation and blood sport. There's a place you can go where you can get good information without blood sport, right? And where is that? It's not civil. You're thinking it's civil. It's not. It's the Advocates for Self-Government. Head on over there if you would. There's a link if you can see it. There's a link in my face on my Facebook page. There's a link here on the description in YouTube, also in on Rumble. Click that specific link, please, and head over to the Advocates for Self-Government through that link so they know I sent you. Go do that and do me a favor. Read this specific article. People think of the Advocates as only the world's smallest political quiz. It is that. I use that all the time. That's why I love them. That's why I'm my sponsor. I love them. But they also have a bunch of articles you can read. And the best part about the articles is read the article. This is how drug price controls make things bad, right? Explains why, gives you good information. But at the end, you get to rate it. Was it a good article or not? Rate it, submit your rating, and then do me a favor, share it. Why do I want you to share it? Because there are people who think drug pricing controls awesome, and people who think it's bad. Here you can have an actual conversation, not blood sport, actual talk, back and forth conversation to see what they think is right, what they think is wrong. And to Jacob's point, you may turn somebody. If you want to change the culture, people have to believe that there can be such a thing as self-government. They have to believe it. They have to get it. The Advocates for Self-Government, that are one of the best places to make that happen. So please click that link, support them. But whatever you do, share it so others can too. So I pitched that. Jacob, tell me, before we wrap this up, is there something that we missed, something you want to talk about, something you want to chat about? Please.
No, I think we covered everything. And I love the Advocates for Self-Government, by the way. My buddy Jim Babka works for them. Great guy.
Love Jim.
Check out his show as well. No, I think this was a great conversation. I think we touched on the intersection of culture and politics and all that. And, I'll plug again what I do over at LCI before we hop off. We literally talk about the intersection between faith and freedom. In fact, we have a book that we a flagship book, Faith Seeking Freedom, Libertarian Christian Answers to Tough Questions. Now, this is the first edition. The second edition is almost done. And so that'll be coming out. It'll be expanded and revised edition, which will be coming out probably like Q2 of next year. So everyone can go check out libertarianchristians.com and find out more about what we do there.
There we go. Amity, tell me, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm on X all the time at AmityLee13, cyberbullying the government, and I
Thank you for your service.
A lot of political activism, mainly in the pro-life space. And when I say pro-life, I don't just mean trying to ensure that the preborn are not murdered in the womb, and finding alternatives for mothers in crisis. But also pro-life to me means anti-war and not bombing people overseas for no reason. So from the womb to the tomb, I'm pro-life. And I also advocate for humanitarian deportation methods that includes due process. And people can, find me on X and find out what I do. And again, I'll plug free show since I'm going to be on next Friday at Freedom for Us for All. And catch me at some state conventions next year and the national convention. I will be traveling around trying to, just spread the message of liberty anywhere I can.
There we go. Liberty Liddy says, Larry-thon, which is tomorrow, Saturday, 2 to 6. Yes, this is for Larry Sharpe, for my governor, and not Sharpe Way. Two separate things. You hear that, government? Don't get me screwed. They're two separate things, not the same. So if you want to check out, go over to Larry Sharpe Properties, Saturday, 2 to 6. We have lots of cool people on there. Check it out when you have a chance. I appreciate that tremendously. Also, sometimes remember, as of next week, Sharpe Way shows will only be on Sharpe Way Properties. We're separating because I don't want the government to get on my ass. So we're separating. So please, if you want to check me out, make sure you're on those channels. Please, it does matter. And also remember that if you want me to grow, not only do you have to click the like and all that kind of good stuff, please do so. But also, after this is over, please comment on the live. Comment afterwards. And please, I want you to comment on. Why do you think our necessities are expensive and our luxuries are cheap? Tell me why you think that's true. Please comment afterwards. And if you're watching this is not live, you see two videos pop up. Grab one of them and watch for 8 to 10 minutes. Why? Mr. Rhythm, Algo Rhythm loves when you do that. So please do that. I will see you all very soon.